The Substance is about Elizabeth Sparkle, an aging celebrity a little bit past her prime, who after being fired from her morning aerobics show is given the opportunity to try a new black market drug called the Substance, which miraculously creates a better, more youthful version of her to exist in the world for 7 days at a time. While one is in control, the other is unconscious on the floor being tube fed. Then they trade. Every 7 days, no exception. Sue is this new version of Sparkle, and she immediately is hired on as her own replacement on this morning show as a younger, sexier, more virile version of her. But Sue wants as much spotlight as she can get now that she's perfect again. Another rule the movie makes clear to both of us and Elizabeth: the two are one. There is no her and you, it's just you. Contrary to what my 5th grade bullies would have you believe, I do not have a vagina, yet I was still able to connect with the Substance and felt every ounce of Elizabeth Sparkle's spiraling nightmare. You know, when a movie is about beauty standards, I don't expect its lead character's journey to be so primarily internal and self-destructive in the way The Substance is able to be due to its gonzo body horror premise. It's not as simple as the surface suggests, and that's one of the reasons The Substance is so brilliant. Because yes, overall it is about beauty standards and the male gaze, but it's also about things like addiction, self-control, and nostalgia poisoning. And that's probably my favorite aspect of this movie thematically, because it's the one I can relate to. The Substance is surreal, so it's difficult to cover every aspect of this movie, so forgive me if I left something out that you felt was paramount. I actively want to hear those things in the comments and talk about them with everybody. I totally come in peace here. This is completely my opinion. The concept of being two different versions of yourself, each with their own opinion about the other, really was giving me those addiction vibes, even more specifically like pharmaceutical addiction, that pattern of running out of the stuff that makes you feel like the best version of you, and then having to wait and exist and rot as you perceive to be the worst version of you until you can re-up. It's a painful and destructive, shitty cycle to live in, and it makes your sense of identity mutate into something you can't really recognize anymore. But anyway, as it goes on, we see over and over Elizabeth sitting at home festering, quite literally, over Sue's successes and how perfect she is and how she used to be perfect and now she's not, and she hates herself because of it. But see, like, the term herself can apply to both Sue and her. She wanted Sue so she could relive her glory days, but what the movie cleverly shows us is that that's impossible. And longing to be who you were 20 years ago as your quote-unquote perfect self is stupid and cringe, and it'll only make you feel worse about yourself now. And Sue, played by Margaret Qualley, had a very difficult role to play here, and it's a strange character because her very existence makes her sort of ineligible of human depth. She more serves as a vessel for Elizabeth's idea of her best self. Sweaty, hot, perfect, smiling, bend, twist, see you guys next week, stay pretty like me, look at me. But that idea isn't one of her own making. It's one that society has projected upon her. It's the version of her on that TV screen. That vapidness isn't one of her own making. It's what the execs at the TV station know will get people's attention. And I think she has internalized that to the point that she has no sense of self now that the world does not see her as desirable anymore. At least that's my opinion. Speaking of desirable, god dang, Sue is a desirable character in this. No, but seriously, I do want to say something about the nudity in this movie. I noticed that her body is only titillating and sexy when it's through the lens of a camera, which is also the same way Elizabeth sees her own self as her best self. She mistakenly sees her past best self through that same camera lens. There are gratuitous shots of female nudity in this movie, but it's so unsexual and clinical that I wasn't even really clocking when it was on screen after a certain point. In stark contrast, the moments that are bafflingly graphic and gratuitously sexual and very horny, I am projecting, are all from the set of a TV show broadcasting to everybody. I just thought that was a really cool contrast that seemed very deliberate. Elizabeth is having an identity crisis, and her profession of being a starlet in the public eye has warped her own perspective on what makes her valuable, what makes her beautiful. You don't know you're beautiful, you know? The scene of her getting ready for her date broke my heart. It's the most human moment in the movie that otherwise feels surreal and inhuman. Her inability to ignore Sue's giant, perfect body on the billboard right outside her window just speaks volumes about the insecurity and discomfort in our own bodies and minds. And as a pretty anxious dude, I've had many moments like that where I'm changing clothes every 5 minutes or freaking out about some visible or invisible blemish. I have a zit on my ass right now. Or the way my hair separates, somehow making me hate everything else about my body as well, and you start to round down on any assessment of your image. It's this ridiculous human impulse to be unhappy with exactly who we are right now. It's never good enough. It was better before, I'll be better after. But in this exact moment, how much do you like who you are? These are just some of the things I was thinking about while watching. It's not a big deal. Enough of this introspective sissy stuff though, because the other best thing about The Substance is that the rest of the movie, when I wasn't thinking about those deeper things, I was thinking,
oh shit, wait, what? No. Oh, what's going on?
No.
Oh my God.
Coralie Fargeet has made the ballsiest movie of the year, I think. I really enjoyed her first full-length feature, Revenge, which is streaming on Shudder right now, and I highly recommend if you haven't seen it. But The Substance is such a huge step up that it's a miracle it doesn't split itself open at the seam and spill its guts all over the stairs. It does do that, but I only mean that as high praise. I love to talk about Cronenberg, and Fargeet herself has cited him as a huge influence on her work, but I don't really want to talk about Cronenberg because that influence isn't really on her sleeve the way it is on, say, his son. I think Possessor is a great double feature with this, by the way, and it tackles that abstract consciousness swapping thing in a similar way. Fargeet has her own goals in mind, though, for what she wants to accomplish through body horror, and those intentions felt both pure and inspired. The way the movie builds its nastiness stood out to me, how the escalation is so expected narratively, yet so utterly shocking every time it reveals a new deformity or a new source of physical or mental anguish for Elizabeth Sparkles to go through. I don't want to spoil specifically the third act of this movie, but if you don't know, that's great. I'll just say unquestionably, it's some of the craziest practical effects I've ever seen in a movie. The Thing has always been my North Star for practical effects in horror, and it still is, but The Substance is probably the best body horror film of the last 20 years for me personally that I can think of. Not that I've seen every single one, okay? The body horror is fully realized both above and below the surface of The Substance. The emotional and psychological elements are also body horror related, and I love that. Body horror has always been a great genre to explore themes of self-image, and The Substance takes that theme to its absolute maximalist peak until you're not sure you can take much more, and then it hits you with something worse. The production, sound, and creature design are all incredible. The egg yolk imagery is great, and I thought maybe the yellowness of Elizabeth's jacket and other things throughout the film seemed to be referencing that egg yolk concept throughout the film. There are certain insert shots in this movie that make my skin crawl, like not since Requiem for a Dream has imagery like this burned itself into my retinas. But unlike Requiem, The Substance is often hilarious, and you're laughing with it, so once the movie goes completely batshit in the third act with its body horror stuff, the feeling is so satisfying knowing the movie has a sense of humor and is encouraging you to laugh and yell and cover your eyes at the same time. It was really something to experience with the crowd. The performances are all pitch perfect. I didn't even get into the meta-narrative of Demi Moore's very presence in a movie like this, but her performance is incredible, and if the Academy does have any sense of integrity at all, it would nominate her for lead actress. I thought she was staggering in this. Dennis Quaid is quite repulsive in this, and it's so crazy to think that this and Reagan are in theaters at the exact same time. That shrimp scene made me want to vomit far more than any goopy practical monster effects we get later on in the movie. Ironically, I think The Substance is going to age very well, and people will look at this movie and see something not only cerebral and human, but also visceral and disgusting, kind of like The Fly. If this video felt all over the place, I'm sorry. I knew I wanted to talk about this movie, but I just wasn't sure how to go about doing that. This movie's not hard to talk about by any means. I just wanted to represent the film the way that I experienced it as a guy, which wasn't really lending itself to the basic movie was good, tons of boobs, haha, it's super gross, lol way of doing it at first. I felt too much about this movie, so I'm gonna stop rambling about this because I want to hear what other people thought who saw it. If you hated it, I would like to know why, and if you loved it, same question. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you want. See you guys later.